Thank you. Thank you. How do you follow a ginger? My goodness. Bonnie, I love you, but I like to talk about this kiss and make up stuff, you know. Wow. Georgia, we're going to do it again in 2020, right? Before I get into my remarks this morning, I just want to take a personal point here and thank somebody that's been a friend of mine for a long time, and I think he's developed into quite a few friendships here. But I want us all to thank John Watson for the last 2 years and his tireless work in working with this party and turning us and going forward. Thank you. John, thank you, wherever you are. If Bonnie were up here with me, I think she would second this, that the greatest honor of our lives have been to serve you, the people of Georgia, in the United States Senate. In 2014, Bonnie and I decided to run because we wanted to do something to help change the direction of our country. We talked about the global security crisis, and I know ad infinitum, I talked about the debt crisis. We had one message, and I think it resonated. Washington was broken, and if you wanted a different result, you had to send a different kind of person to Washington. Together, you and I stood in the breach, and we defeated an onslaught from the Democrats, and we sent an outsider to Washington, but it wasn't easy. I remember a few weeks before the election, many of you remember my mother. She was about 90 at the time. My mother was a fifth grade teacher. She pretty much treated everybody like a fifth grader, but we loved Mama G. That's what my kids and grandkids call her, Mama G. She called me one day a few weeks before the end of the election, and I mean the Democrats are really pouring it on. They're spending $50 million of telling everybody what a bum I am in Georgia. And she said, David, I'm worried. I said, Mom, why? She said, well, these Democrats, these ads are terrible. You didn't do all that stuff, did you? I said, no, Mom, I didn't do all that stuff. She said, the problem is, if they keep this up, I might not vote for you. But we stood in the breach, folks, you and I won't be forever in your debt because we sent an outsider to Washington. I've been there 4 years. I'm still the outsider in the belly of the beast up there. But you know what? In 2016, we sent another outsider to Washington. And thanks to you, we put Donald J. Trump in the White House. I want to talk to you about something, though, that is deadly serious. I tell President Trump all the time, he's going to be the guy that history will show that was at the helm when America turned away from a 100-year slide towards socialism and turned back to the founding principles of our founding mothers and fathers. But make no mistake today, we cannot be caught sleeping. We've had our wake-up call last year. We are in an ideological war for the future of our republic. It's just that simple. The Democrats actually want to convert America to a socialist state. And I know that sounds radical, that sounds conspiratorial. I can back it up, folks, with what they are saying, and we'll do that in just a minute. But Winston Churchill said that the problem with capitalism is the imperfect distribution of prosperity. The problem with socialism is the perfect distribution of misery. It's true. This socialism conversation, unfortunately, did not just start with Bernie Sanders or Elizabeth Warren. We've had a 100-year slide towards socialism in America. The progressives started it in the first decade of the 20th century. We've had a 100-year slide toward the socialist agenda that has failed in the rest of the world. In the last 100 years, we've only had 4 political supermajorities. That's where you have the House, the Senate with 60 votes, and the White House. We've had 4 of those, only 4, all Democrat. You know that the Republicans have never had a supermajority since the Senate was elected in 1913. Never. We've never had more than 55 seats. And under President Trump, we're going to begin to change that in the 21st century. I promise you that. Over the last 100 years, we've had 4 political supermajorities. They've given us the New Deal, the Great Society, Dodd-Frank, and Obamacare. And I'm just a business guy, but I can put at the feet of those supermajorities most of the responsibility of this financial catastrophe that we have on our hands right now today. And the irony of all that is that these sweeping socialist programs have all failed. It irritates me when I hear the Democrats, oh, we're the party of the little guy. No, they're not. They're the ones that have cheated and pandered to the little guy and have failed the working men and women of America for the last 100 years. Let me give you a couple of examples. The poverty rate today is exactly the same as it was in 1965 when the Great Society was signed on the desk I get to use, Richard Russell's desk in my office. The Great Society's War on Poverty was signed on that desk, and we've spent trillions of dollars trying to eradicate poverty in America. Do you realize that it's exactly the same today as it was in 1965? We have not touched poverty, even though we spent trillions of dollars behind that. President Trump can change that. In 1975, before Jimmy Carter created the Department of Education, our 14-year-olds were number 1 in the world in math, science, and reading. Today, we're 24th, 25th, and 38th in math and science and reading. We know these big sweeping programs don't work. Obamacare is the latest example of where a state tried to take over your life and my life and failed miserably. Medicare, that trust fund was supposed to be sacred and last forever. That trust fund goes to zero in 7 years. Social Security trust fund goes to zero in 12 years. And this is about the point where my wife says, stop talking because I can bring any cocktail party to its knees, y'all. But I'm telling you, this is the truth. Freddie Mac is bankrupt. Fannie Mae is bankrupt. The Postal Service is bankrupt. The VA is an embarrassment. Let's be very clear about one thing this morning. If we have had anything happen in the last 100 years, the Democrats have had opportunity after opportunity after opportunity to prove that the socialist way of life will work, and they have failed at every single turn. But I've got good news for you today. Donald J. Trump is President of the United States of America. He has a vision. He didn't come from the bubble in Washington. He's an outsider like I am. This guy is trying to get results. After 8 years of the lowest economic output in U.S. history under Barack Obama, President Trump said that Job One was growing the economy. I was privileged to be in a very small group in the Oval Office 2 weeks after he was inaugurated to determine the agenda for the first 2 years. We agreed to talk about regulations, energy, taxes, and Dodd-Frank. And guess what? This man put it to work. We have reversed over 2,000 regulations under President Trump. We've unleashed our energy potential such that today we export more oil and gas than any other country in the world, and that's happened in just 2 years under Donald Trump. With his leadership, starting in 2017, Congress got off its backside and passed a tax bill that's revolutionary. It makes us compete with the rest of the world for the first time in a decade. And I think probably best of all, that affects most of you in this room and a lot of our friends back home, is that we had a bipartisan bill. I was part of the banking committee that started that, and we passed a Dodd-Frank bill that repealed the most onerous parts of Dodd-Frank and freed up $2 trillion off the balance sheets of small community banks and regional banks in America. And this is what happens. When we get back to the founding principles of our founding fathers and mothers, this is what happens. We have the best economic turnaround in U.S. history underway right now. We've created more than 5 million new jobs. We have the highest middle-class income, in U.S. history. We have the lowest unemployment in 50 years, the lowest African-American, Asian, and Hispanic unemployment ever measured. But in addition to stimulating the economy, this man was given a military that had been disinvested by Barack Obama. They cut spending in the military by 25%. The world was more dangerous than any time in my lifetime. And the allies were sitting around thinking, well, where is America? President Trump changed that. He is rebuilding our military, rebuilding our readiness. He's fighting for a level playing field with all of our trading partners, including China. He's getting our NATO allies finally to start paying their fair share for their own defense. With his leadership, we actually did repeal probably the most onerous part of Obamacare, and that's the individual mandate. And the one I'm so proud of him for, there was a law passed by Congress in 1991 that required the president to do something that no other president had the guts to do. This president moved the embassy from Tel Aviv to Jerusalem. This president told you he'd drain the swamp. I'm telling you that today, so far, over 2,000 people have been removed from the Veterans Administration for not doing their jobs. And the thing I think that will make the most difference in our history going forward the next 3 or 4 decades, certainly the next couple of generations, is under President Trump's leadership. He nominated and we confirmed 106 federal judges, including 40 justices of the Circuit Courts of Appeal and 2 Supreme Court justices, Neil Gorsuch and Brett Kavanaugh. This president made promises and he's keeping his promises. Today, he's not taking a victory lap, y'all. Trust me, he's not taking a victory lap. He calls at midnight, he'll call at 5:30 in the morning. I mean, ask Bonnie. I don't know when the man sleeps. I will tell you this, I did have lunch with him at the White House a few weeks ago. I thought it'd be a 30-minute lunch. I was there for about 6 hours and I came home exhausted, y'all. He works. Here in Georgia, President Trump just announced, talking about infrastructure. We're focusing now on infrastructure, immigration, and trade. And I went to him a couple years ago and I said, you've got a great poster child for what you want to do with infrastructure right here in Savannah, Georgia. And he said, what are you talking about? I said, well, we have a port that we've been trying for 17 years at that point to deepen just 5 feet, y'all, 5 feet. He said, what are you talking about? I said, well, we've been trying to get through EPA, Corps of Engineers, all of this, we've been trying for 17 years. He said, well, I think I can fix that. So for the last 3 years, y'all, this president has fully funded the deepening project of this Savannah port, and I'm telling you, we'll finish it by the end of 2021. This president told you he would get results. He's getting results. He's proving that what we believe in actually works. When was the last time you heard a president say that? A president that comes from outside the Washington bubble and talks about things like economic opportunity for everybody, fiscal responsibility, limit to government, and yes, individual liberty. This president is talking about getting back to the founding principles of our founding mothers and our founding fathers. But I have to tell you, he gets beat up every day. You see it, I see it. The Democrats are on a mission. This is obstructionism of a historic level. Our founding principles are under assault. I never thought I'd be standing here building a case about why capitalism is better than socialism in my lifetime. I never believed that would happen, but here we are. I didn't ask for this fight, but like you, I'm up for it. Radical Democrats, let's just focus for a minute. Let's just focus for a minute on what they're really saying. I'm like George Patton. You know, I read your book. He called him a name. You have to listen to what they say, and we can't be caught sleeping on what they're telling us. They actually say that socialism is better than capitalism, and they've convinced a lot of our younger people in these universities that that might be the case. They believe in a single-party system. They believe in open borders. They want to legalize infanticide, guys. They want to abolish ICE. They want illegal immigrants and felons to have the right to vote, and they want to give everybody in the United States, if you're unwilling or unable to work, a stipend of $30,000 a year. They want to increase taxes. They want socialized medicine. They want the Green New Deal. Let me tell you about the Green New Deal. It would cost America $9 trillion every single year. Y'all, we only collect $2 trillion in income tax today. But worse than that is that the entire adjusted gross income of America is only $9 trillion. They don't want your tax, they want your total income. But don't worry, they have the solution. They'll just keep borrowing money from the rest of the world to pay for this silly notion that a state central government knows more about our lives than we do. That's what the new Democratic Socialist Party is giving us. But here's what happens. Just listen to this now. These are quotes from what these people are saying. If they win the White House this time, that means I believe they'll win the Senate. And if they keep the House, then they'll have all three. This is what they'll do. They've said they will do away with the filibuster rule, which means they can make the changes in America with 51 votes in the Senate. And to do that, that will allow them to add D.C., Washington, D.C., and Puerto Rico as two new states. Then they will add 2 or 3 seats to the Supreme Court. You know what kind of judges they'll put on there. And most importantly, they want to do away with the Electoral College, guys. They'll do this because otherwise they can't cram down this socialist regime, this socialist edict on the American people. They want a single-party system, just like happened in Russia in 1917, in Germany in the 1930s, in Cuba in 1959, and in Venezuela later in the 20th century. And all those regimes failed, guys. There's no mistake about it. But we had a wake-up call last year. You and I did. 2018 in our governor's race, our lieutenant governor's race. That got a lot closer than it should have been. And thank God, because of you and thousands of people like you, we made darn sure that Brian Kemp became the next governor of Georgia. Thank you. But buckle up, folks. What we're going to be up against in 2020 will make 2018 pale in comparison. They had over 800 paid employees on the ground in Georgia during that governor's race. Most of those people are still here. They're learning how to register voters. They're learning how to collect and harvest votes. And I want to tell you today, in my opinion, the battle for the White House is right here in Georgia in 2020. I believe that if President Trump does not win Georgia, I don't believe he'll win the electoral vote, and he won't be our next president. I hate to put that pressure on you guys, but that's exactly what I believe. I think we can back that up. I am absolutely convinced the Democrats are targeting Georgia. They believe the path to the White House runs through Georgia, and we cannot let that happen. But the only thing standing in the way of that is you and me. Let's be clear. This is not somebody else's job. I didn't ask for it. You didn't ask for it. Well, maybe I did ask for it, but you know. Bonnie's never going to let me forget that. And I'm kidding. But this is bigger than me, y'all. It's bigger than you. It's even bigger than the President of the United States. This is about the future of this republic. It's about our children and our children's children. Bonnie and I will forever be in your debt for all you've done for us, for this state, for our country. But we've proven one person can make a difference. We've proven that we can change the direction of the country, and we've proven that what we believe in actually works under President Trump. The closing sentence of the Declaration of Independence says, in support of this declaration, with a firm reliance on the protection of divine providence, we mutually pledge to each other our lives, our fortunes, our sacred honor. Ladies and gentlemen, I can't do any better than that. Where are you today? Are you fully invested? Are you focused on what makes us great as a country, or are you focused on what may divide us? Are you focused on our adversary and what they're telling us, or what we might disagree with one of us in the room about? Ginger said it best. The enemy is not here. It's not in this room. I know who the enemy is, but in my job in the Senate, I don't mind fighting the guys on the other team. It's when I have to turn around and fight some of these guys about what Donald Trump, that's hard. Here's our opportunity. The reason I say this is bigger than Donald Trump. For the last 100 years, we've been the minority party. We've let the Democrats have a free run. We've tried it their way for 100 years. Trillions of dollars have been wasted. I believe if we get this right in 2020, and then again in 2024, and then again in 2028, we can actually make the Republican Party the majority party for the next 100 years and prove to the world that light is still here in America and that we will still be the shining city on a hill. I want to close today with a story about a new friend of mine, though. It means a lot to me. This is a young man in his 20s. He's right here in Georgia, graduated from a university right here in Georgia. Joined the Army, became a Green Beret, served in Afghanistan. As we sit here today, he's in Walter Reed Hospital. He's had 18 surgeries. He stepped on an IED in Afghanistan back in March this year. It was a fluke accident. They'd already cleared the area. The IED exploded, took both his legs, blew up into his body. I had a long talk with his mother, had a long talk with him. I have not had a more uplifting conversation since I've been in the United States Senate. This young man understood what it meant to stand in the breach. He's an American hero. Today, as we honor our men and women in this uniform in this Military Appreciation Month, I want us all to listen to what this guy told me the other day, what he's telling you. I said, Justin, are you going to be okay? He said, sir, I'm going to be good. But you know, I stood in that breach, and now you and I have to stand in that breach. In 2014, I asked you to stand with me, help change the direction of our country, and you did that. Today, I'm asking you to stand with me. And I need confirmation of that. I need to hear you say that. So when I ask you these questions, I want to hear you say yes. If you're saying no, there's another meeting down the street, but I want to hear a good hard yes today. I want to know if you'll stand with me and unite behind our founding principles that Donald Trump's trying to implement. Will you stand with me? Yeah. Will you stand with me and stop this radical nonsense behind this socialist agenda of these Democrats? Will you stand with me? Yeah. Will you stand with me and re-elect Donald J. Trump to be the next term of President of the United States of America? Will you stand with me? The road to socialism will never run through the state of Georgia. God bless you. God bless Georgia, and God bless the United States of America. Thank you.